episode 60 of the Real World Paleo Podcast. Hi everyone, I'm Christine Lehman, a nutritional therapy practitioner and the reverse diabetes coach, which is also the name of my website. I help clients in the DC metro area and by Skype, and I'm accepting new clients right now. The Real World Paleo Podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Stitcher. And you can buy some great paleo and primal products on my website, including organic skincare, grass-fed meat, and extra virgin olive oil, which is shipped directly from Greece. Please remember while you're listening to the show, advice and information we provide is intended to be helpful and informative, but is not a substitute for medical advice or treatment. I want to welcome Matthew Tolford to the show today. He founded NewGrowth Healing and Hypnosis to help empower people to thrive. Matthew integrates best practices from many scientific and philosophic disciplines with knowledge dating back thousands of years. He is an innovative teacher, coach, hypnotherapist, and wellness practitioner. Matthew uses teaching and coaching, many energy modalities, Western and spiritual-based hypnosis to empower people to heal, grow, and direct their lives on the path they choose. Matthew is client-centered and works with people where they are, enabling them to continue their growth by removing mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual blocks. So welcome, Matthew. Now, listeners, I want to say that we experienced some technical problems when I recorded this interview with Matthew. So, unfortunately, I had to cut out the first section where we talk about his journey and a little bit about the mind-body connection. But the good news is that we still have over 40 minutes of great content and conversation left. So where we pick up is when I was asking Matthew about how people react when they're overstressed. And he was saying that adrenal fatigue can be one symptom of that. And also, sorry about any other little sound issues you may hear.
Very common is adrenal fatigue. Another is that when I don't know how many people I know that they're overweight, they eat a good diet, and they exercise all the time. And yet they develop bellies, they develop body fat and things like that because the body is storing fat and energy to be out on the hunt. Other ways it can manifest, and ways that it manifested in me, is I developed overly tight muscles. My relaxed state, my muscles were always tight, they were always sore, and so for me it actually manifested in pain, and in muscles that they weren't flexible, they were stiff. They can also manifest in that your immune system, if you're in unfamiliar territory for too long, the body doesn't really care about infections or things like that because you need to survive the situation that you're in. It will worry about infections later. And so if you are in unfamiliar territory for too long, your immune system goes down. You can't fight off colds. You can't fight off disease that, everybody else in your house is healthy. But you get every disease or flu that comes along or that your kids bring home from school. Mm-hmm. Another manifestation is lack of sleep. You go to sleep at night and you wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you're obsessing over bills or things going on in work, and your brain just sort of goes in a constant loop where you're thinking about things and worrying about things, but not putting any energy towards solutions or things like that. There are just almost any form of dis-ease is a result of being outside the village, or the disease itself actually takes you outside the village.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like in a town like Washington, D.C., that we would have a fair amount of adrenal fatigue and insomniacs.
People who are just, it's the end condition is stressed. Is stress.
Mm-hmm. So does this also manifest itself in things like overeating or food cravings and smoking, when I think, or unhealthy behaviors?
Most definitely. I find that with many of my clients who come to me with the targeted goal of losing weight, changing bad habits, cravings, and smoking and things like that, they come with, thinking that the smoking or the eating is the problem. And so many times what I find is that that's just the symptom of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that if let's take a smoker, that if you start talking about some of their concerns about family relationships and work and start giving them the tools to relax and become self-empowered, they're able to quit on their own. They're able to change patterns on your own when you start doing the root cause analysis of what's going on. Because the difference between being in the village or on the hunt in modern society is not a tiger, but really our thoughts. And that becomes the real key. Because it's very, very good and powerful thing to be in, when you're on the beltway, to be in the sympathetic mode and to be able to watch out for traffic. The thing is, once you're off the beltway and you're driving around, you should be relaxed. You should be back in the village. Mm-hmm. The problem is that many of us never go back to the village. Many of us forget what it is like to be so relaxed, to be able to be joyful, to thrive. And so many people, when they go on vacation and they think they're relaxing, they're going from a extreme level of stress to a less extreme, maybe to even mediate or a moderate stress, and they feel better relative to how they normally feel. Yet their capacity to enjoy is diminished. Mm-hmm. This is not to say that everybody who lives around a city or everyone who is experiencing stress is not functioning perfectly. Actually, they are. They're responding to the environment that they're living in. And they're responding, and their body and mind is working perfectly. The issue that I tend to deal with is their thoughts tend to have them interpret that environment as being a threat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's multiplied by when you listen to the news and you listen to all the scary stories, the fear-mongering. This particular election, there's a lot of emotion and things that are expressed. So it tends to keep people in that place of negativity bias, which that with those thoughts mean that our body interprets even the good things around us. It's a threat first, and we have to prove it to be safe. Mm-hmm. And that takes its toll on your body. It creates the overeating. When you crave sugar, you're out on the hunt. Your body's not going. It doesn't want that deep nutrition. It doesn't have time to digest it. But sugar and carbohydrates, that I can store. And that I can eat and get right away.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a fast-acting food.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So do you think this is related, sort of the emotional numbing as well, by overeating, for example, or eating, lots of sugary foods?
Yes.
Or even drinking?
Oh, absolutely. All of those, in my world, I consider emotions to be thoughts as well. Because when we think, kind of the question is, what is a thought? And often we think about thoughts about what's going through our conscious mind, and yet we're told that we're only 10% aware of our thoughts, which means that other 90%, what are those things? Well, it's really all the signals that are going on in our body, which includes those painful emotions or joyful emotions and all those other things. So I would say that the statement that we're only aware of 10% of our thoughts is a terrible exaggeration. We're really only aware of 0.00000000001% of our thoughts, or even less, because all those emotions, all those limiting beliefs, all those patterns and things like that, they're the thoughts that are going on within our body. And it's becoming aware of those thoughts that help us to take control of our lives. And when we become aware of those emotions that we're trying to numb, then we're able to deal with those and release those and live a life to thrive.
Mm-hmm. So I know that's creating awareness is definitely one of the first things I would assume that you do with people. So maybe this is a good time to talk about, how do you create that awareness? Can you maybe give an example of that?
Certainly. The first thing is that all individuals are different, and what approach that would work for you is not going to be the same thing that's going to work for me or somebody else. And so it's very important to realize that we need to start addressing things on the plane or the level that they're most receptive to. One technique is just education and awareness. The problem is that when you're up to your ass in alligators, you can't pick out curtains. And so sometimes we have to deal with the presenting issue first to get people to be able to release the stress and things like that. One approach is the hypnosis. Doing hypnosis is incredibly relaxing and feels really, really good. And there are many, many different tools that we can use with hypnosis. And we could talk for hours about what those different tools are. But what hypnosis is not mind control. Hypnosis is really about putting you back in charge of your life and becoming more aware of what's going on. Another area that we can also deal with is coaching and allow people to start becoming aware of what their issues are in their life. Often I sit down with a cup of coffee and people will just start telling you, this is what's going on. Because everybody kind of has some awareness of what's going on. They just don't realize that they know what's going on. And the third area that I work with is I also do a lot of energy work. And if you're familiar with tools like Reiki, quantum touch, healing touch, and things like that, for those people who are so stressed out that doing energy work and in balancing what's going on in their body, it allows them to get a sensation of relaxation. Sometimes they get an intuitive thought, but it allows them to let go and starts to shift things. Whenever anything manifests in your life, it manifests on the mental mind level, it manifests on the body level, and it manifests on the spiritual level. So something is going on each and every single level, no matter what it is. And so it's possible to begin addressing things at any of those levels. Mm-hmm. And then
Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying once you start to address it on one level, say if somebody is suffering problems at work, and because they're suffering problems at work, it's creating headaches and stress, and it's creating problems at home and things like that. Sometimes it's too much to get the whole ball of wax and start dealing with the issue at work because it just seems overwhelming. Well, if we do an energy session and release the stress and the tension about it, they go back into the village. Now everything at work is now different. Then they can start dealing with those things. And when you go back, some of the physical manifestations in the body disappear, at least temporarily, till they bring it back, so that they'll sleep better that night. They'll digest food better, and they'll actually heal quicker from immune diseases.
Mm-hmm. Which is wonderful. So, lots of benefits to that. Can you provide a few case examples of someone either maybe with a smoking addiction or some kind of addiction where you were able to apply this?
Let me first preference this with your results will vary. I've had a couple of very extreme cases where I would consider to be absolutely miraculous. But one of my favorites was the first year that I opened up my practice full-time, I had a PTSD referral, and I thought that this would be more hypnotherapy and to try and have them deal with the trauma directly and reframe the trauma, heal the trauma, do some forgiveness work and things like that. So I had a plan in mind when this person walked in the door. Yet when they walked in the door, I just knew that they were too stressed out they were too far into it to be able to have it, possibly even to go into hypnosis. So with this particular client, the first thing I did, I got into that place of healing, of energy work, and this is a little unusual, but I just stood there and I hugged them for about 10 minutes. Now, while I was hugging this person, I had the intention of doing energy work, and I literally felt them melt and sort of release right there and then. And so once they got beyond that, and we got them in a chair, I did several different blends of energy work, including Reiki, Metatronic healing, and some other things, and they just laid in the chair. They almost looked like they were in a hypnotic trance, and worked on them for a while. Then once they released, we were able to talk about what was going on. Mm-hmm. And they started to explain this particular person was the first person on site when her husband was murdered out of the country, and she rode in the ambulance while her husband died. Then after that event, her husband's murder was on the internet. And I later went and I looked and I watched the film footage of 4 people beating her husband to death. So she was telling me what was going on. She felt disengaged from her kids, very detached, that she just, she couldn't relate to her kids. She wasn't eating. She'd go out with friends and she'd have a drink, but then come home and drink half a fifth of scotch to go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And so she was just totally sort of out of touch with the day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. So we talked about a couple things, just sort of talk about the framing and the meaning of some of this, and then did a little bit more healing work. And understand healing work is going on the entire time. And so as a sort of closure for this particular client, I said, well, when you come back, let's go ahead and let's get lunch. And she's like, well, okay, but I probably won't be eating. Well, when she came back for a second visit and we went to lunch, she was eating. She had stopped drinking. She had re-engaged with her kids. She had described it like she felt like she was in a cage before, and that she was no longer in that cage. And again, during that second session, we did a little bit more discussion about talking about the family issues and things like that. But then instead of going into hypnosis, we did healing work. And instead of talking about forgiveness, she experienced sort of the state of forgiveness. And she was able to, and this came up during the discussion, that she was able to start forgiving and letting go of things. Mm-hmm. When she came back for a third appointment, she told me that her psychiatrist had seen so much improvement that they would terminate services on their next anniversary visit. Now, she had been seeing a psychiatrist for 1.5 years. Mm-hmm. And here we have that in a state of 2 weeks, because she came to me twice that first week, her symptoms disappeared. And she had told me that she thought this would be her last visit. And something told me, I'm like, I don't think so. I think we're going to see each other at least one more time. But you'll call me when the time is right. So she did call me back about 6 weeks later because she had to go to a family funeral and deal with relatives and things like that of her husband's family and things like that. And so we did have some more work to do. But all of these symptoms, all of the emotions and things like that was primarily cleared out with energetic healing and a little bit of a conversation. And to me, that was, again, this is an extreme case, but that was absolutely amazing with the power of what can be done.
Yes, it does sound very transformative. So it sounds like you're able to read people quite well, and that they almost need, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the energy work, is that always physical, or in other words, involve touch, or not?
Actually, with energy work can work anyway, and I wish I was smart enough that it was I who knew, but this is sort of intuitive work. When they walk in, when a client walks in the door, all my expectations usually go up, and I essentially tune into their energy, for lack of better words. But it's something that we all do naturally. Mm-hmm. When you go to a wedding and you just have this really good feeling, because everybody is there and having fun, and we open up and we feel, oh, wow, this feels really good. It has a great energy. We all have the capability to read energy. This is something that every living creature does. In the same way, when you go to work and nobody has said anything, but you know something's going wrong, you feel bad before you know what the situation is. So when a client walks in the door, or I'm talking with them over the phone, I essentially tune into what is going on in their energy. Now, this is not mind reading. I don't know what their thoughts are. I don't know what the cause is. But it's almost like knowing what the color of the energy is, or the vibration. Okay, and I work with that. And so that sometimes tells me whether hypnosis is better or doing energy work is better. But it is something that we all naturally do. And people who are energy workers have just been made to be more aware of that. Now, that does not require any touch at all. I have many remote clients that I've worked with. I've had actually quite a few in Florida, where I will talk with the people over the telephone and then get off the phone, and I'll tune in and I'll do remote energy work with them from a distance, and then at the end of the session call them up. And one case that was kind of fun was, my memory sometimes gets in the way. They were having a lot of extreme pain by, I'm sorry, this is really terrible. It's from when you get chicken pox older in life, you tendency to have this kind of pain.
Is it shingles?
Shingles, yes. This lady had shingles, and she'd been suffering in pain for about 6 weeks, and so the best time for her was actually a time while I was driving a car. And so I called her from the car, and while I'm driving, and this is great, I'm driving down the road, and I'm doing a remote tuned into her energy down in Florida. I'm in the D.C. area, and I work on her. She had reported the shingles pain on a scale of 0 to 10 to be an 8.
Wow.
When I called her up, the pain was gone completely.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Now, the funny thing about this story was, since I was driving a car, I couldn't take any payment, so I called that afternoon. She had called to cancel her appointment with the chiropractor, and the chiropractor yelled at her. And her shingles pain came back to a 4. Okay, so while I was on the phone, I worked with her again, and the pain went away. But here's the beautiful part about the story. We started in a conversation about the issues that were related to the shingles pain, that she had certain decisions that she had to make about her business and a relationship with her husband. And these pains were directly related to the shingles. And so when I got off the phone, we had kind of resolved those issues. The pain was gone. And then I talked to her daughter about 3 or 4 months down the road, and the pain never came back.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. So they're often longer-term results that you get?
Sometimes results are permanent. Sometimes healing can take an instant. Mm-hmm. But the problem is this mind-body connection, that if we have certain thoughts and certain limitings and patterns, we can actually heal something and then bring it right back. I've worked, energy work is fantastic for getting rid of pain, physical pain, mm-hmm. but it also can get rid of emotional and mental pain, but we have certain pattern. And I've worked on people before, and they've been in pain, maybe at maybe a 5 or 6 level, and been able to get the pain to just a little bit of discomfort. It's like, wow, this is feeling really good. And I say, but what is that? And all of a sudden the pain would come right back. Because that pain is reflecting something going on in their life. And so full healing is really about fully letting go of certain issues and things that are causing blocks in our lives. And so you can go and get healing, but then your pattern brings it right back. So, I mean, healing work can be cumulative, like going and getting a massage. If you go get one massage, that feels really, really good. And we write a lot of our thoughts and emotions into our bodies. And if you talk to a massage therapist, often they'll tell you that somebody starts crying when they get a massage. Because we've written those emotions, many of us, not all of us, write it into our muscles. And as they work out the tension, the stress in the muscle, it releases that emotions. Okay? If you get cumulative massage work, and you're one of those type of people, after 6 to 8 weeks of getting a massage, your personality starts to change. Because you've gotten rid of those things and the way that it's manifested in your body.
So are you saying that you need to remove, or if a person is removing the triggers for those things, that's really the ultimate healing?
Yes. And healing is really about getting back into that place of positive growth. Because everything knows how to grow positively. It's just that when you create a blockage, then we have to compensate. It's like if you've seen the pictures of a bicycle in the middle of a tree, that the tree grows up around the bicycle. Well, if somebody had removed the bicycle, it would have grown up just fine. So it's really about removing blocks and allowing individuals to heal themselves. In the same way with a doctor doesn't heal a cold or the flu. They give you something to survive the symptoms and support the body while the body heals itself.
Yeah, we all have that capacity to heal.
Yes. Well, yes, absolutely.
So I wonder if we can circle back to hypnosis for a minute. You know, a lot of people sort of maybe picturing someone waving, that old stereotype of some kind of watch or, in front of them or, just kind of these sort of images of what hypnosis is. So what do you think it is and it is not?
Hypnosis is really a misleading word. Hypnosis, and when we talk about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, is really about using focused concentration to help you use your mind and get more in touch with your subconscious to empower you to understand what's going on and do releases. Hypnosis is not about mind control. And I still think it's funny if I'm out in a situation and somebody asks what I do and I tell them I'm a hypnotherapy and they turn their eyes away as if I could look into their eyes. And there are people who do believe that.
Wow.
But hypnosis is just using natural states of focus and concentration. Many people have found that guided meditations are very helpful for stress release. Well, most of your efficient guided meditations use hypnotic language to help lead you into a state of focus or relaxation. Okay. Now, hypnosis is not relaxation because I can actually hypnotize somebody in an aroused state. But what it really is about bypassing the critical factor, the part of your mind that sort of gets in the way of getting to your subconscious mind, which you always have access to, so that you have better communication. Your subconscious mind does everything it can to protect you, but it doesn't really evaluate as well as other parts of your mind. And so when you get into hypnosis, there are things called direct suggestions, and I can give a direct suggestion, you will do this, you will do that. Thing is, it will only take those direct suggestions that are consistent with what you already believe. I can't tell you to do something that you don't believe. You just won't do it. Okay? So a lot of hypnosis is just a relaxed state of direct suggestion, and that works for 15 to 20% of the situations and people. But more, when you get into a relaxed state, you're able to recall and be aware of things that you're not really aware of at other times. So when you're in a state of hypnosis, if you have a pattern or something that's going on, often you can get to the root of what's causing this pattern. Is that pattern actually helpful? No. Okay, then stop it. And sometimes it's as simple as that, just getting to, well, you've been doing something since you were 5 years old, and you do it so fast that your conscious mind is not even aware that you're going through the same pattern. Well, once you're aware that where this pattern is coming from, then it becomes quite easy to make a decision to change it. It's the unconscious thought that drives. Often the conscious mind is more like a television set. Then it doesn't process. It just displays what's going on. So hypnosis is a wonderful tool to allow you to get into different states where you're able to figure out what's going on, do root cause analysis, make a decision, and then follow suit.
So how would that actually work if you're in the state of hypnosis, let's say, as a patient or a client? Are you able to do that entire process while you're in your subconscious, or do you have to bring it back out and then do the decision making? How am I going to change that?
That will vary by client. Sometimes it is more useful because sometimes I, as a hypnotherapist, I have to do some checks. And so sometimes I have to bring the client out and say, well, we talked about this under hypnosis. I want to make sure that these are the results that you want. But more often, what I do is that when we go, prior to going under hypnosis, we talk about what the goals are. We talk about the different things that might be in the way. And then we go into and we create a safe place under hypnosis. And we encourage you to use your imagination. And in this safe place, you're empowered. And in this safe place, you get to make the decisions that are for your best and your highest good. And you're now aware of those things that are getting in the way of making this decision. And so we allow them to process those things while they're relaxed. Some people will remember every single word. Other people don't. It's sort of like a long conversation. You always know. But if you had a long conversation with a friend, you've spoke for 2 hours, and you leave the conversation, feel like you remembered everything you talked about. But then a song comes on the radio, and you're like, oh yeah, we talked about that, but I forgot. Mm-hmm. And so you are always aware of what's going on, but you're just not, it's just not right there in front of your mind. So I can't say anything to you under hypnosis that I can cause the illusion that you'd forget, but eventually you would remember. You're always in control. Your subconscious mind is always in control. So while you're in that state, I ask the question, do you like these changes you decided to make? And I usually ask that question 3 times. And the reason I ask 3 times is not to get permission, but for them to really accept and believe that those changes have taken place, which puts them in control. It puts them in the driver's seat. So they should almost have the feeling of, oh, I didn't need the hypnotist because I just decided to do it myself. And so that's really kind of bad for business in one way, because in a sense, we want to empower them so much they feel like they wouldn't need the hypnotist, because that makes it their own. Mm-hmm. But then again, it sort of takes away from, it's like, well, I'm kind of the one who helped you get there. So it's kind of fun. Mm-hmm.
So any other example of someone you've really helped through hypnosis, a particular issue that you want to share?
Well, one that's particularly fun is someone came to me for, they wanted some coaching about business. They're micromanaging their employees. And this is one of those situations that, as they describe to me, they tell me exactly what the situation, what they're doing that they need to stop. And I just sort of reflected. They were micromanaging their contractors, and so he would sleep with the phone on. If a client called and there was a problem going on with the contractor, he would go out the same day and fix it. So I asked a few questions, and this is outside of hypnosis. Would anybody get hurt if he didn't go out the same day? Would the customer be just as happy if the contractor came back the next day and took care of it? Then I also encouraged him to turn off his phone for at least 2 hours a day. And then we went in and we did the hypnosis session, and we put in some positive affirmations and suggestions that we discussed outside of hypnosis, put in some habit change suggestions, the importance about taking some time for yourself. That part of his assignment was he had to take at least 1 hour a day and do something for himself. He comes back the next week, big grin on his face, and says, "My road rage went away." He never told me about his road rage. He didn't tell me the whole reason he decided to come and seek some help was because he got into 2 car accidents in a month. Just absolute change.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Besides that, he also told me that one of the changes was about procrastination, that something he had been putting off for 3 or 4 months, he got done in 45 minutes.
Hey, I want that. Well, you must find this work very rewarding.
Oh, it is. I've got the best job in the world. My job is to help make you happy. Mm-hmm. In whatever way, whatever that means to you. It's not my job to tell you what your habits should be. It's not my job to determine anything about your life. It's my job to help empower you to be able to deal with whatever relationship issues, work issues, physical pain and things like that, working with when you're going through surgery or things like that. How do you go through that with your mind and body, making things go as smoothly as you can and heal far quicker than the doctor tells you can.
Mm-hmm. So it's preventative. You're taking a preventative approach as well.
Yeah, well, I love people who come to me before they go into surgery and things like that, because we can cut down on the amount of anesthesia needed, mm-hmm. and we can cut down on the recovery time, and we can change your body's response to the surgery by educating the body. If your body gets attacked and a surgeon digs a knife into you, your body's natural tendency is to tighten up. Mm-hmm. Your body's natural tendency is to set off all of these hormones to keep you awake and fight against that. But when you prepare the body and you say, you know what, we're talking the subconscious mind is, you're going to be going into surgery. Okay? The doctor's going to cut into you, but this is going to be for your best interest. And then when the surgery is done, your body will come back and take over and do its job in terms of healing and things like that. And for some of the people that I've seen, and this is a very difficult thing to measure, but it seems that on average, the recovery is going anywhere from about 35 to 50% quicker than the doctor said it would.
Wow. That's really interesting. I wouldn't have even thought about using this hypnosis and other. Are you using other healing modalities for that as well?
It's on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in this story, your results will vary. Mm-hmm. One woman came to me. She was diagnosed with a form of breast cancer that's very, very aggressive. They found a tumor. She decided to take charge of her life and that she was going to do everything that she could to make this process go well. And so she came to me, and we both did energy healing to support her body. And energy healing, you tend to focus on whatever presents itself in the moment. But then we also did some hypnosis to prepare her so that with suggestions that she would be relaxed during the surgery so she wouldn't need as much anesthesia. And to, again, some of those suggestions we just talked about. Well, it was outpatient surgery, and she sent an email out to a whole bunch of people day of the surgery. She's home, everything went fine. So I didn't want to bother her, but I called her about 5 days later. I caught her just as she was leaving the oncologist office. They couldn't find the tumor that they had biopsied. The cancer had already disappeared. Now, I attribute that to this woman who took charge of her life and did so many different things to change her mindset, to have a healthy mindset, to do the energy healing, to eat the right nutritions and do all that prep. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to do the Snoopy dance because I was part of having that experience where the cancer disappeared before the surgery.
Wow.
Now, she's a smart woman. She did... the doctors decided, okay, we're not going to do any chemo or anything like that, but we're just going to prophylactically do some radiation. So she's not a fool. She's like, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. But she went through this process of a very aggressive breast cancer, the same breast cancer that I believe that Angelina Jolie had breast surgery to prevent just because she had the gene for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's been about 4 or 5 years, and there's been no reoccurrence.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a big advocate of combining modalities. Do energy work. Do hypnosis or coaching to make sure that you have the mindset so that your body lives in the village, so it's tuned to thrive. Because that gives you the creative resources when you face an issue. It's not a problem. You come with creative solutions, whereas when you're on the hunt, the blood goes to the back of the brain. You're more reactive. You have to protect yourself. Everything is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
If everything is a threat, your solutions have to deal with everything as a threat. When you're in the village and realize that 3/4 of what you're dealing with is no threat, then you have different solutions.
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
And part of that too is what you do with nutrition is so important to make sure that the body is healthy, the mind is healthy, because the mind, body, and spirit is one thing. They're not separate things.
Absolutely. In fact, I just saw a client before we got on the air today who is facing an autoimmune disease, and it is really wreaking havoc with her body and different aspects of her health, and it is just so important that things get realigned, and it was a combination of a traumatic incident as well as her diet and but importantly her digestive system. And when you're talking about being in the parasympathetic mode, that's when you're less stressed and your body, your central nervous system is relaxed, and that is really the ultimate way you want to have your body stay in so that you can digest your food properly, because what happens often with autoimmune disorders is your digestive system is responding to food as a threat, and it creates antibodies and goes into attack mode and overdrive, which is creating inflammation. So all this makes it very hard to absorb nutrients,
and
you need to thrive. So
exactly, and all of that, guess what? That's affecting the thoughts that your client's having, because it's not a one-way street. It's all the same thing. So that's sending signals. All of these issues going inside the body are sending stress signals to the mind. The negativity bias and occupying the mind so much as well.
Exactly. And she even said that when she ate something that did not agree with her, she felt the stress in her body. So that goes back to the whole mind-body, connection that we were talking about. So I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Matthew.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Great. And where can people find you?
Well, if people would like, and if people have questions, you can feel free to call me and ask any questions that you'd like. 571-354-6444. I'll say that again to give people a chance. 571-354-6444. Or you can go out and read a little bit about me on the website. I'll confess that I'm not that tech savvy, so I have not updated the sites in a while. But you can read a little bit at NewGrowthHealing.com. Again, that's NewGrowthHealing.com.
Great. And I will also provide that link and phone number in the show notes. And I want to thank listeners for being with us today, and I hope you have a great, healthy week.